Proceedings are resumed. I'll invite the honourable member from the District of Easton to continue with his debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we took the evening break, I was on the subject of politicians who have served and their vision, and in essence, I believe it could speak to their legacy for this country and what it meant to the development and enhancement of our people. And in particular, I was talking about the Truman Bodden Law School, when that was conceived by the then, what they were, national team, not Madam Speaker? National team, yeah. And Madam Speaker, Unity team, I believe it was. Yes, the Unity team, that's right. Because it was done in the 80s. Yes. That's before the national team. But, Madam Speaker, my question was, what will be our vision? What will be our legacy? Like the motion talks about, Madam Speaker, the time has come to step up to the next phase. Madam Speaker, I should take note that, I was speaking about prayer in the opening, and during the evening break, I came back in the chamber, and sitting on my desk was a letter and it had G. Magoo as a return address. And of course, you know, that sort of frightened me because I know who G. Magoo is. And Madam Speaker, when I opened it, it is a letter from Mr. Magoo about us coming together for prayer. So, you know, divine intervention works in many instances. So, not that I dismiss it now, you know. I'm just saying maybe a time for it to be over, but this look like it's still time, pray. So I want to say to Mr. Magoo that I accept his invitation. Madam Speaker, the law school. Many young Caymanians took up that opportunity. And when it's, including your good self, Madam Speaker, and when it started up, it was somewhat of a part-time school in that you had to do your articleship while you were going to school, something like that. So it made the students that much more rounded, because a lot of them worked with government, and they went from department to department, learning the different systems in government, which augured well with them, with their education at the same time. Madam Speaker, people like the 5th elected member from Georgetown came back here from school with first degree and then decided that law was his calling and took up law. I believe because of his broad experience of being overseas, he became somewhat successful in his field. But those who went from here and went straight out of high school in here, many of those were successful as well. People like Sammy Jackson, the Premier, the Wade DeCosta, the Minister for Financial Services, Reed, Hunter. So we can't say that we didn't have some successes out of it. And there are a few more, I believe, that had some successes too. But Madam Speaker, I want you to take a look at when they started. They were some of the first students in the law school. And because of their roundedness, they were rather successful. The majority who I just named became partners. I don't know why they became partners and then went in politics like the premier, because that was his financial demise. But that's he saw another calling in advocacy. So that's what he did. And you know, you have to commend people for doing that. Madam Speaker, be that as it may, I only talked about those to show that there is nothing wrong with Caymanians from their shoulders up. Now let's look at those who have recently gone in there, the law school. Very few has risen any higher than a glorified librarian in some of these forms. Unfair, unreasonable. No one can tell me that they are not, all of them are not capable. Not one out of them are capable. You cannot tell me that. I refuse to accept that. But what it is, Madam Speaker, we have allowed it to happen. We have allowed people to take advantage of our own people. And then we empower them by begging them to give our people opportunities. It is our responsibility to put the provisions in place that opportunities come to our people. And until we start doing that, we have failed. Don't be afraid of your failures. Those are the ones you can change. No need to change your successes. You need work on your failures. And we have failed. We have failed miserably. Madam Speaker, we have failed so much that the legal practitioners bill has been discussed for the last 10, 15 years. When I was a sitting member of cabinet, they all came with it in hand. But I had get an advance copy. And my question to them at the time, and Madam Speaker, the Minister of Financial Services were with them. Let's get it straight now. He was with them, presenting it to cabinet for legislation to be forwarded to the legislature. My question to them was, after listening to them with their spiel, and my good friend was there, my question to them was, I asked them if they know Janet Jackson. And they all sung out in unison. Of course. I said, well, I don't know the songs. One in particular I want to remind you all of. What have you done for me lately? They couldn't answer that. And I told my colleagues, one right there, I am but one in cabinet. The people of East End didn't send me to cabinet. They sent me here. It was by chance I got the opportunity to go in the executive of this country. The seat on that side in cabinet does not belong to the people of East End. But one seat in here does. That's their real estate. I can't stop it from coming to Parliament. But I know what I can do. I can debate it, object to it on that side, pick up my bags, and walk to the other side where the people of East End real estate is. I can't say that that stopped it from coming here. I would like to hope so. But I know what? I was going to break that government up if it had come down here. That's how that was going to work. Madam Speaker, now they say that I was an obstructionist. So, Madam Speaker, there has been 3 governments since that, and they're not reached yet. Is there something wrong with that, or something wrong with me? It must be that there is something wrong with the provisions of in that legal practitioners bill that I saw then that is still there, why it hasn't reached here. You know why, Madam Speaker? Everybody wants to impose their own bill on that legal practitioners bill. One of the biggest industry, the most financially viable industry in this country, and we are allowing all and sundry to remove our own people from it. And Madam Speaker, you know, I keep telling the members of this House, them windshields keep growing bigger every day. Madam Speaker, subsequent to my tenure in cabinet, they tried meeting up by Associated Industries, it was. And I made it very clear in that meeting. We know how many of your partners we made Caymanians. The question is, how many Caymanians have you made partners? And that was the end of our meeting too. Madam Speaker, since then, it has raised its head again, and I went on the radio, and I said, I'm supporting it the way it is. Because, Madam Speaker, they are further going to disenfranchise Caymanians. And, Madam Speaker, the windshield walking again. I know, Madam Speaker, I know that the front bench out there has the draft of that legal practitioners bill. Some handle front bench, Madam Speaker. But it's not circulated out there yet either. But one know I got a copy too. You hear what I tell you, Madam Speaker? And it gets worse. It gets worse. And more Caymanians are going to be disenfranchised. More importantly, they got to destroy our economy if they put it in place. Because I see in there where the definition of firm is that you only need one person on Cayman with equity. You know what that is, Madam Speaker? The legal practitioners law does not require fees from firms under 6. So you can give up to 6, and then you don't have to pay any fees. Over the 50, you got to pay over $400,000. So you know what they got to do, Madam Speaker? They got to set up a nameplate here, and then have them all overseas. They got to make them money out there, destroy this economy, and then give us double whammy. Here's the second one they got to do. They got to remit all their money they made over there, here, for our tax haven. That's what they got to do. They think they're smart. I ain't no lawyer, but I can see them coming, you know. You think it's going to get cross here with the help of God and a couple policemen and one wheelchair, I'll be in here. Or a hospital bed. Madam Speaker, that's why they don't bring it. But who is allowing them to make these proposals? It needs to come here, colleagues. It is us to stop it. It is us to put in place what we want within reason, but certainly not to outsource the laws that we have painstakingly put in place to protect our people. And we got Senate, Timbuktu, and Kuwait, and Dubai, and Hong Kong, and they get the benefit of it? Is that what we're going to do? Have you all noticed the one that was passed in BVI? They set up a council made up of laymen who will decide who practices BVI law. But what they're proposing, this one is a council of lawyers. Oh, Lord, you know, Madam Speaker, I really think we foo-foo, you know. And you think I read? You think that only lawyers can read and understand? And I missed the boat. And every lawyer must be a member of that council. Madam Speaker, you know, really, is that what we're standing for as legislators who have been entrusted with protecting the very people laws like that will destroy? I hear the fifth elected member in his presentation saying we should be ashamed of ourselves. Thank you very much. We really should be ashamed of ourselves if them kind of laws come here. Madam Speaker, we got enough trouble with this immigration one. We really think that this immigration law isn't any good? There is nothing wrong with it, except it is not enforced, and the interpretation thereof is rubbish. Want to see the one that was circulated about how people can move from wherever they want to go? Is that what we're standing for, Madam Speaker? Forget about anyone coming to the country. I'm in business with them. Madam Speaker, I couldn't stop either one of these honorable members in this chamber from becoming Caymanian. It was not my place to stop them. I didn't have any control over that. Therefore, those who come and become Cayman, I ain't got no control over that either. We made the laws from Cayman protection law even straight up. So once you have jumped through that hoop, then you're a Caymanian. I need to protect you, but I need to stop you. I need to protect the less fortunate from you taking advantage of them too. That's my job. And until the people of East End or the good Almighty removes me from here, you got to hear my voice, whether you like it or not. You know what? The rules I got 2 hours. I can say my ABCs forward and backward. You can't stop me. It's all and sundry, just, you mightn't agree with me, but the law requires us to have 10 inside here all the time. You got to listen. Madam Speaker, you know, I was somewhat confused with the debate from the Minister of Financial Services. A little confused, but I understand that it reminded me of this old judge that used to be in Cayman one time, and he said to one of the defendant, the lawyers defending, he said, it appears like your client has is one of those that found God up in Northwood. It appears like God resides up there now. But I understand. At the end of the day, if times last, circumstances change, you will have a different outlook on life. I understand all that. Madam Speaker, hear the minister pleading to his colleagues in the financial industry to help. Oh, I don't know what he did. Maybe that would have been a good thing. His opportunity. Because, Madam Speaker, many, many, many lawyers came to me from that very law firm whilst he was there and while as MD and before that. And I recall 9 leaving, 9 Caymanians leaving before one became partner. We lost 9 out of one firm with an advocate in there. Huh? We expect any better from anyone else? Honestly. And then I heard him say about this little Ovala boy with that dialect that was different from anyone else. And Madam Speaker, don't take 2 and 2, add 2 and 2, you know. You can get 3, 4, or whatever you want it to be. But I work it out to 4. Hear my dialect too, East End. That's why I told the Attorney General Valentine, the late Edna Moyle, God bless her soul, said to me, oh, don't worry about him, that's his Irish, Scottish sense of humor. I say East Enders got one too, which he certainly don't want to collide with. Well, Madam Speaker, the little boy in Low Valley come from a very prominent family. I know who he is. And I ain't calling no names either. I wonder what the Minister for Financial Services did. Obviously, the little boy couldn't stay at 15. That's sad. That's sad. It's really sad. That's really, really sad. But Madam Speaker, just shows what we do. And then we seek atonement for the sins of our fathers and the sins of ourselves. We got to be careful with seeking atonement, though. Sometimes it don't come in time. Madam Speaker, a couple months ago, the Minister for Social Services, Community Services, got up here and took a piece of skin off the business community. The president of Chamber of Commerce came out and said, don't blame the business, it's the legislators. He was right. He was right. And my colleague was wrong. Madam Speaker, on the 28th of October, an ad was run in the Caymanian campus. Madam Speaker, you gotta give me a little break now because I'm seriously challenged with this technology thing now. Anyway, Madam Speaker, someone said it to me, and I got it on this. Yeah. We are seeking application for qualified and experienced Caymanians for the following position. Recommend. Must have a minimum of 10 years experience using Luke rakes on hot mixed asphalt. Must have knowledge of raking transverse and longitudinal joints to maximize compaction. Willingness to work evenings, weekends, and holidays is necessary. Pay will be in the range of 10 CI to 12 CI per hour. Please provide a detailed resume, including a cover letter, and include 3 employment references for your application to be considered. Please specify the position you wish to apply for, and hand deliver your application to the Managing Director, Island Paving, 1985 Limited, 243 Northtown Road. No application will be accepted by phone, fax, email, or mail. Now, 3 employment references for a Caymanian. Madam Speaker, I want us to think about that. You know where I'm coming from, Madam Speaker. The only people had pavers in this country was NRA, Mars Column, whatever name. Yeah, them. Advanced payments or something like that. And Island pay it. Now, nobody got to tell me that there are not 3. How you expect Caymanian get 3? Even if he jump between them 3, he can't get one from the one you're applying for. Honestly? And 10 years? Madam Speaker, you know what it is? Fluke rakes are those long ones with the short teeth that got the more metal, you know? And when the asphalt pile up, you pull it and level it out so you can get one rake, you know? 3 years, 3 references, 10 years experience, you one rake? Madam Speaker, my colleague from Bordentown, the minister from Bordentown, was wrong. It is not the private sector fault. It is ours. We allow them to put that kind of ad in the papers. And you know when it had to be submitted by? That was the 28th of October. It had to be submitted by the 30th of October. That's what we do. Madam Speaker, no one is to blame but the members of this honorable house. Stop blaming everyone else. Stop empowering them and begging them. Let us do what we think is reasonable to maintain our businesses. Contrary to what someone think that I am anti-business. I understand the concept of this economy. Maybe much better than many of you. I understand how it works. But we allow others to work it for us and to manipulate it. And we sit down and do nothing. Cayman News Service, the 3rd of November 2015. The Premier has stated that his government does not blame the business community for unemployment. But he does not believe that the more than 1,500 Caymanians officially registered as jobless are all unemployable. Alden McLaughlin revealed that how government deals with the local unemployment will be part of the current shake-up of the public sector under the Project Future banner. He was not specific about medium to long-term plans, but said it was a challenge that his government needed to deal with immediately. Today what? 23rd, 20 days ago. The subject of unemployment among Caymanians in the face of 22,000 work permits and the improving economic situation was at the forefront of many debates in the Legislative Assembly during the last meeting. The Premier said that he did not believe that every work permit represented a job loss for a Caymanian, but the numbers were such that no Caymanian who wants to work should be facing such difficulty finding a job. Agree, agree, agree. Talking at a press briefing on Monday where plans for public sector reform were unveiled. McLaughlin also spoke about the need for government to address the way it was dealing with the challenge presented by the unemployment figures, which the most recent data shows, quote, open quotation, is open quotation, heading in the wrong direction, close quotation. The issue is scheduled to be addressed in phase 2 of Project Future. Phase 2. We haven't kicked phase 1 out of the ground yet. You mean it got to take this government that long to address unemployment? And my good friend, the 4th elected member from Baden just got up there and say he's so proud of this government, they're dealing with it. That conflicts with this. Unless the newspaper is wrong. Now, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. They have been wrong many times. In the new, the issue is scheduled to be addressed in phase 2 of the Project Future. In the newly published program brief on page 11, it states that government plans to develop an overarching policy framework on employment, where future skill requirements, training for local workers, and the intervention needed will be assessed. This project will refocus government efforts into activities that make a positive difference in supporting Caymanians into employment, and it will provide a more effective framework for working with businesses to enable them to do more, he said. Our economy is large, successful, and growing. In those circumstances, we should be able to say that any Caymanian who wants work should be able to find suitable employment in a reasonable period of time. Government and businesses need to work together to make that a reality. The project will get that done years from now. And preparing for election hour. While not blaming work permit or business, McLaughlin said businesses and government could do, and there was a need to identify the barriers that stood in the way of the jobless local people securing work. It was clear, he added, that the government system regarding employment was, open quotation, not terribly effective, close quotation. And for some reason, when it was created, the National Workforce Development Agency was not designed to be an employment agency. Woohoo, revelations. With a rebounded economy and a growth in permits, the challenge was to find out why the unemployment figures were going up. That challenge? That can't be a challenge. We know the answers, Madam Speaker. We all know it's a complex issue and that a whole range of things are impacting the Caymanian unemployment rate. But we need to do more, as it's unacceptable that we have 22,000 work permits, he said, noting a huge demand for labor, but significant local unemployment. Hello. McLaughlin said government must do a better job of identifying who the unemployed are and identify the deficiencies that are keeping them from being employed. He said that the government had held meetings with the Chamber of Commerce, but it wasn't acceptable to say people are unemployable. No one can convince me that the 1,500 unemployed people can't be employed, he said, adding that the government must find out why they can't get work and address it. The long-term question of whether or not the work permit system should be moved from immigration would form part of the consideration in the second phase of Project Future. In the meantime, the challenge of unemployment was immediate, he said. Madam Speaker, I wonder why this motion on this floor. He didn't tell us about this one, didn't read this or what? You mean he doing all this by himself now? Tell him that. That's a one-man show there, what? It is a one-man show. Or this wouldn't be here. Wait, is that it? My good friend from Georgetown wouldn't be bringing this. The independent member among the PPM. If policies and proposals were being shared. Madam Speaker, that's how we run our government. He's right. We need to address it and find out why we got 22,000 work permit holders and 1,500 Caymanians still unemployed. What is the government doing about it? I ain't talking no backbenchers now, Madam Speaker. We know where the power lies. We have been here long enough to know that, Madam Speaker. The decision-making lies right in the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where it's at. Let us utilize the power that was given to us by the people and use it judiciously, wisely. To create the balance that the Minister of Financial Services talked about. We need to ensure that when the tide rises, everybody rises. That responsibility has been placed squarely on the shoulders of the government. Not me. My job must be to support when it's worthy of support and oppose When it's going, it is not going to help the majority of our people. That's my job. Madam Speaker, lip service is all we're doing. Lip service. We talk and we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk. Action, action, action. But we don't have an action in us. Madam Speaker, the member from Northside and I, in trying to have our people in East End and Northside tried to find out what was going on at Tortuga Club. This is a year ago. Had a meeting with the governor and deputy governor about it. Went to the business staffing board about it. To try, wrote them. I went to cabinet about it. And when the owners of Tortuga Club went to them, you know what I told them? None of their boards, none of the boards in this country are influenced by politics. Meaning, don't worry about gardening, is it? And don't tell me they didn't say so. The deputy governor told me he tell them so. Okay? I done, Madam Speaker. If I can't advocate for my people and expose those who are not doing what they're supposed to, then don't use me being here. I might as well go home and make my family flog me because my involvement in politics has given them enough flogging. That's what I got out of this. My mouth too big. But I don't see no doctors and just tie it to the top of my mouth though. My tongue. It can still be moving. Maybe when someone is gone too. Madam Speaker, it's still on us. On us. Not them out there. Let's stop blaming them. When we see the things they do to circumvent the law, we need to deal with it. Madam Speaker, I want to know how many people through the immigration process has been charged with $20,000 when they don't report that Caymanians applied for the job. Madam Speaker, I recently went to Tortuga Club. In the last month, I got representation. Must be five EastEnders they fired. I went to see them. And they were quite receptive, Madam Speaker. And they showed me the reasons these people were terminated. You want to hear them, Madam Speaker? Some lawyer told them that they needed 3 letters on their file before you can disciplinary letters. It had to be that. You have a model employee for 10 years. And in the last 9 months, you got 3 letters on file. 3 disciplinary letters. You know what they say? He didn't, when he finished the job his supervisor gave him, he didn't go back check with his supervisor. One model employee, nothing, absolutely nothing on his file. As a matter of fact, commendation on his file. And verbal commendation given to the manager. that they wish they had every employee like him. Always 45 minutes early in the morning. Never refuse to do anything. Always on get the job done on time. And he was on the night shift 11 till 7, maintenance. And the supervisor must have come out of the clear blue sky and said something to him about, you don't have to wait for someone to tell you that the lights are out. You can see them now, it's night. They dusted on lights, security lights. And he must have responded with some colorful language. Recognizing what he did, the next morning he apologized because it was his day off to the HR manager. In that evening, they sent him a termination letter. Madam Speaker, that fair? Is it not the management responsibility to try and coach people? Employees? The immigration law talks about it. Is that how we allow our people to be kicked to the curb and we do nothing about it? No, Madam Speaker, and I ain't got to play the recording here. I ain't got to do that to avoid, I wrote the minister in the middle of the night. The minister responded early next morning, passing it to somehow staff in the labor department or something. And they called me a couple of days later. We were that day and said that they were going to address it and they would send people there to look at it. So they called me in the morning. They were going to choose the Paris week there in East End. And I explained to them, between those two calls I'd gotten from them, what it was I had experienced, and that's what they had to look for. They spent the whole day, Madam Speaker, up there. This was early morning, 8, 9. They called me and said they were going. After 5, I missed a call from them, but they left a voicemail message. Say that they had been to Tortuga, done their investigation, and they had found some serious problems with it. It's Tuesday, just gone now. Tomorrow, 1 week. Madam Speaker, I want to see what they got to do about it. I'm waiting with bated breath. You hear what I tell you, Madam Speaker? I'm waiting to see what we do about it. Not what they do about it, Because we constantly blame them for what they do. We need to punish people when they disenfranchise our people. And the laws are there. But we come up here and beg them, please don't do that again. Please don't. Madam Speaker, I keep saying, barring those who are born with some mental defect, all of us know the difference between right and wrong. And we know that the consequences of wrong is punishment. Think we don't know that? Sometimes we learn our names, we know it. Madam Speaker, let me say there are good employers in this country who work hard. Hard. Look at the accounting world. And I don't want to get too much into it, Madam Speaker, but the accounting world. I believe the second elected member from Georgetown tell me there must be 15, 20 partners in that. Recently you told me that, didn't you? 15, 20 Caymanian partners in that. Madam Speaker, you are telling me we only know numbers? No, Madam Speaker. It is because opportunities were given. And we don't have to legislate and manage those people. But in every society, there are those that must be controlled by legislation. And we are no different. And if we don't do it, we're going to lose our country. Our people are suffering. You hear the minister say that hundreds of kids coming back from school. I understand from the Education Council, there's anywhere between 600 and 700 children at any given time on tertiary education. What we doing? That's what they know of. Those that are getting private funding, they don't even know of. And we do nothing? And we sit here and beg them to take their children? Take our children? What is it? Because we get ours secured in a job, we don't worry about others? You need to stop this, you know. You hear the minister talk about it's not those who are uneducated that causes the revolution. Revolutions are caused from academics when they feel disenfranchised. And remember Tiananmen Square? Who was it? College students. So we're educating them, not making no provision for them, and make them come back and have a revolution, an intellectual revolution in our country that we can't stop. Is that what we're looking for? Or will we have a vision that we can leave as a legacy to enhance those people, those children's lives? That is the question. That's the question that the member from Georgetown is trying to resolve here. That's what we're looking for. But no, people dismiss him because he's disruptive. That's what he is. He needs to be chastised for it. That's unfortunate. That others' ideas are not as good as ours. That others' goals and objectives does not align with ours. Therefore, they must be punished by being ostracized in a society that needs everyone. We need to stop that. We need to stop being so selfish, arrogant, self-serving. And sit by and ridicule people who are different than we are. Maybe we need to start thinking about a little bit of diversity and understanding how to deal with people. No one here is less than the other. We were all elected, duly elected through the democratic process in the same manner, whether we went in on somebody's frock tail or not. We were elected to come here to occupy this real estate to enhance the lives of our people. Only some are going to be government. And government will always have its way. But the opposition must be allowed to have its say. If the opposition can do what it wants, then the tail will be wagging the dog. That's not how it was designed to work. But don't tell me, because I'm advocating on behalf of the people, that I'm being disruptive. You bring something that I can support, and I will support it. Here we are, the back bench, begging the front bench to do what they need to do. Madam Speaker, I'm reminded of the current president of the United States when he was starting his campaign. I listened to him one night. This was 2008, I believe, when he got elected. So it would be like 2007. And he said what we need to stop is the lobbyists funding politics, where the lobbyist writes the checks and our constituents gets to write letters to Congress. And we will never, America would never survive on that basis. Cayman not survive like that either. Where our people write the letters of complaint. I can't say that we have lobbyists here. So that part may not be necessarily relevant to us. But Madam Speaker, I complained about Tortuga Club again moving the sand from up there to go to a piece of property down the road. I was figuring not move it yet, you know. They haven't moved it yet. An enforcement notice was placed upon them, and they haven't returned it. I complained about Joe Imperato moving that field from up there that he dug out that was supposed to stay on the property. Lash him with an enforcement notice. And you know what he did? Turned around now and applied to cut the whole hill down. Madam Speaker, just today in the Royal Gazette, Bermuda has increased fines for planning after the fact. Those are the things we allow people to get away with. And the Caymanian who go and paint his front door a different color gets punished for it. Therein lies the difference. We sit down and allow people to do as they please. They just walk all over us and we do nothing. But it's not their fault. Madam Speaker, you see the lawyers, after I was talking about it in here, they came and they beat me up in the papers that I was wrong. But Madam Speaker, you know, I responded to them. And at that time, I challenged them to inform this august body to advise this assembly with verifiable reason why so many Caymanians who received their experiential left the various law firms in recent times. And I see none yet. And let me tell you the date, Madam Speaker. 22nd of October, 2015. One day shy, 1 month. I wonder, Madam Speaker, I trust that you haven't received anything either, right? Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's all I'm asking them for. But they can't provide it. Madam Speaker, they were mystified at last Grand Court, I believe it was, opening, when they said they don't know the mystery of why the Legal Practitioners Bill has not been put into legislation. You sure? Sure? Let me demystify it for them. Those who were helping them lobby has no new bosses. on your bosses. And they can't turn their backs on their new bosses. That is the power of the people. That is what we must respect. That is what we must use. The power of the people. We need to stop allowing someone else to manage the power of the people. We don't own any power here. The people sent us here with theirs. But they want us to manage it carefully in their best interest. And if we don't, trust me, they know what to do with us. Trust me, Madam Speaker. That pencil, if you think that can't slide across that ballot paper, try them now. Try them. Madam Speaker, it is. I agree with them. It's not the fault of the businesses. It's not the fault of anyone but 18 members and soon to be 19 that has total and absolute responsibility to ensure that we have in place provisions to protect our people. I said Truman, them talked about law school. That's their legacy. Mr. Warren talked about tourism and cadastral survey. You see how beneficial that is to the people today? Do we understand that? That's what politics is about. Providing something that people benefit in the long run. Now the time has come for us. Because our children, our population is becoming more and more educated and more are getting educated, we need to find some way to accommodate them. That is the most important thing for this country right now. There is nothing more important. Forget about the dock. We can swim shore. Forget about the airport. We can put umbrellas outside. It does not trump preparing this country for an educated population. Making provisions that opportunities are provided. That is of utmost importance. We are bringing 300-400 kids out of university each year. 200-300, most likely, would be a fair, I think, number to be at. What are we doing with them? If we got 1,500 that can't get a job now, and there are many of those who are professionals, educated, first degree, second degree, what are we going to do with the rest? Each year we're going to dump them into the unemployed column? Madam Speaker, we have a responsibility, all 18 of us, to do something. I did what I could. I proposed it in August of 2013, and nobody listened to me then. I'm glad that the fifth elected member from Georgetown, at least they're listening to him. I hope something tangible, measurable, and visible comes as a result of his motion. In order that our people's lives can be better. That's all we need to do. We have the responsibility. The government has the responsibility to propose it. The government has the power to do it. Unfortunately, he had to bring it. Sounds like a motion that should be coming from this side. But you know, I'll bring it. If you didn't, it wasn't going to be so kind, though. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to think that I really wasn't going to support it. I wasn't going to debate it because it was so diluted. But it's all right. I will. Only a fool and a dead person can't change their mind. I'm not going to support his motion because I don't want to bust his bubble either. He's young, he's fresh, and sometimes that's good for encouraging support. I know what I had to do when I went to sea, when those other Caymanians gave me the opportunity. Madam Speaker, we wouldn't be what we are were it not for someone else. That's how life goes around. It's one big cycle. But there's a combination of us putting the systems in place and the opportunities being created out there for them. People who embrace them. And one last thing I wanted to say. Madam Speaker, I heard the minister talk about our dialect, accent, that we should be proud of. I see many Caymanians who want to talk like American and the likes. I don't want to be nobody but from up in the East End. And if you can't understand me, ask me to slow down. And I will talk very slowly so you understand. When I was at CUC2, a gentleman told me that I had an accent. I said, I do. He said, yes, he can't understand you. No. Me got an accent? It is you who have the accent, you know. You're in my country. I can't understand you. He said, oh, you know, you have a chip on your shoulder. I said, take offense to that too. He said, you do? Don't you think you have a chip on your shoulder? I said, no, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I take offense to it. I have a Georgia pine on my shoulder. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to wholeheartedly support this motion brought by the 5th elected member for Georgetown and seconded by the 1st elected member for Bodentown. Madam Speaker, this is probably one of the most critically important private members' motions that is being brought to this Legislative Assembly, and certainly that has been brought to this Legislative Assembly since this current membership has been in sitting since 2013. And Madam Speaker, I would dare say this is probably one of those private member motions that will make or break the path of many of us in this honourable House. Because, Madam Speaker, this private member's motion, in my estimation, is about ensuring a sustainable future for this country. This is about ensuring that our people, our country, is put on a solid foundation for sustainable growth, for sustainable development, and as I said, for a sustainable future. Because, Madam Speaker, if the people of these islands, whether you're a 10th generation or first generation Caymanian, if we're not given the opportunities to succeed in our own country, then where should we have those opportunities? Madam Speaker, in my estimation, this private member's motion is not about affirmative action. This is not affirmative action, Madam Speaker, because Caymanians cannot be made to feel like a minority in our country. We cannot and should not be made to feel like a minority in the psyche, in the mindset of the community at large, of the business community, or the community within these hallowed halls. Irrespective of the fact, Madam Speaker, that we are, in fact, a minority with respect to the number of persons in the workforce. We must recognize the ability, we must recognize the drive, the desire, and the determination of our people to succeed in our country. Madam Speaker, we are, and we have been, and we will always be a welcoming society. That is who we are as a people. That is the attributes we should cling to and that we should be proud of. We are, and we have been, and we will always be a people that welcomes persons with open arms. And we have prospered as a country as a result, Madam Speaker. This willingness to embrace and to adapt to the external influences and the challenges has caused us as a country to stay on top and in some instances ahead of the curve in a number of key and emerging industries. So, Madam Speaker, I am certainly, when I speak about the need to ensure that Caymanians can achieve and can advance and can prosper in our country, I am doing so in the very inclusive sense of the word. Whoever has the right to be considered Caymanian should be considered Caymanian. But whoever has the right to be considered Caymanian also has the responsibility. And that is irrespective of your race, color, creed, socioeconomic status, or otherwise. Madam Speaker, this motion, in my estimation, is about removing the structural or legislative barriers that exist, inadvertently, deliberately, or otherwise, that discourage the upward mobility of our people in our own country, in these very industries that we have helped to create as a result of our welcoming disposition and society. Madam Speaker, this is not about positive discrimination. This is what should be and should be expected because, Madam Speaker, this is what exists the world over. Madam Speaker, contrary to what some of the critics of this motion may say, this is not about dumbing down the criteria for success in our country. On the contrary, this is about recognizing the vast contributions that Caymanians, especially multi-generational Caymanians, who have and who continue to work to succeed, who continue to work to rise to the top of their chosen profession. This is about ensuring that there are no artificial barriers to our people succeeding here in our own country. Madam Speaker, like the fifth elected member from Georgetown said in his contribution, I also echo the sentiments in saying that this is not about being afraid of competition. I am not afraid of competition, Madam Speaker. And as the fifth elected member said in his contribution, I too have competed as a Caymanian all my life. Madam Speaker, I competed at the tender age of 15 for the prestigious and rigorous United World College Scholarship to represent my country, the Cayman Islands, and to further and complete my secondary education overseas. To most recently, Madam Speaker, competing in a hotly contested general elections, achieving a feat as an independent candidate and now member of this honorable House, which has never been achieved to date, and have been competing for numerous other opportunities in between. Madam Speaker, as Caymanians, we are not afraid of competition. And Madam Speaker, given the opportunity, we in most instances will rise to that challenge. Madam Speaker, I had the opportunity to successfully compete not only here in Cayman, but on the world stage. And you know, Madam Speaker, growing up as a little girl in Mount Pleasant from West Bay, from a hardworking, working class family who made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that I could get the best possible education that they could provide so that I could have the opportunity to rise above, to achieve all that is possible as the next generation of a long list of generational Caymanians. I am thankful for that experience, Madam Speaker. I am thankful for those humble yet loving experiences growing up in Cayman, growing up right there on Heddes Lane in West Bay. And as a result of this hard-working Caymanian work ethic that has been and was inculcated in me from the time that I can remember, I was able to successfully compete. I was able to achieve and to excel, not only on the local stage, but internationally. Madam Speaker, as a Caymanian, I've had the privilege of attending some of the top schools, some of the top universities, and training at some of the top law firms in the world. Madam Speaker, I only use my experience as an example here today because, Madam Speaker, if this multi-generational Caymanian who grew up in Mount Pleasant, West Bay, who spent my formative and critical school years right here, who worked to achieve notable success, not just locally on our little rock, but on the world stage at some of the most prestigious universities and some of the most prestigious organizations in the world. If I can do it, Madam Speaker, then there is no reason why other similar Caymanians can't do so as well. In fact, Madam Speaker, there are many Caymanians who have and who continue to compete and to excel locally and throughout the world. So, Madam Speaker, this motion for me is not about trying to circumvent the need to work hard. This motion is not about trying to create, some people may want to criticize or may want to typecast this motion as saying, oh, this is just about creating more of the quote-unquote Caymanian entitlement mentality. This is not what this is about, Madam Speaker. This motion is about ensuring that the same work ethic that we as legislators, we as a community, we as family, we as Caymanians want for our people, the same drive and determination from whence we came, the same drive and determination that we expect our children to demonstrate at school, in their various pursuits, the same drive and determination that we expect our people to demonstrate in the workplace. This is about ensuring that there is the next step available once you have demonstrated your determination, once you have demonstrated your ability, and once you have demonstrated your drive to succeed. Madam Speaker, as legislators, we must find ways to shatter whatever glass, concrete, titanium, whatever ceilings that may be forming as a result of either legislation that needs to be revisited, regulations that need to be revisited, or more importantly, legislation that needs to be enforced. Now, Madam Speaker, we all recognize and appreciate, and more so now than ever sitting in the seat that I sit, that when it comes to the enforcement of legislation, we as legislators, we are responsible for creating the legislative framework, and that various agencies are tasked with the responsibility. Various boards are tasked with the responsibility of enforcement. But, Madam Speaker, we must ensure that as legislators, we don't sit back and say, well, our job is done now that we've created the laws. We must look to ensure that accountability exists at all levels. Because, Madam Speaker, what is our return on our investment as a country? The government spends millions of dollars annually on awarding scholarships so that our people can get educated in order to get a chance to compete. We also require that they come back to contribute to the local economy in recognition of being afforded these scholarships for their personal advancement. We are telling our students, we will give you money to go on to enhance your career prospects. We expect that you come back and contribute to the local economy. That's a fair expectation, Madam Speaker. What we need to do, working in tandem with the business community, the public sector, and the community at large, is to make sure that there are opportunities for those same persons that we invest very heavily in to be able to live up to their obligations with respect to contributing to the society which has afforded them so much. So, Madam Speaker, the first and most important hurdle is education. The government is working hard to ensure that the education system is providing the best possible experience for our children to enable them to develop the tools necessary to be able to compete and compete successfully. Madam Speaker, this administration has taken off the rose-colored glasses. We have taken our high heads out of the sand, and we have recognized that we need to address some of the critical challenges facing the education system and not just pay lip service to education. And Madam Speaker, I am happy and I am privileged to be leading the charge on behalf of the government in this regard. But Madam Speaker, once educated, what next? Madam Speaker, just as we are focusing and we're trying to redress and address some of the areas of either neglect, areas of need, areas of want when it comes to ensuring that our people are educated, and educated in the broadest sense of the word, Madam Speaker, from the academics to the sciences to the technical and vocational to the artistic to the creative, educated in a way that our people can find meaningful employment, meaningful business opportunities, meaningful contribution to the society, while focusing on ensuring that we set the pathway for future success of our people coming through the education system. We must also ensure that once Caymanians get educated, once they are educated, once they demonstrate, as I said, that drive, that determination, that ability to succeed, that Caymanians are given real opportunities for employment, training, development, advancement, and ownership opportunities. Madam Speaker, we must ensure that those efforts are not stymied. Those efforts are not thwarted because of legislation that inadvertently or otherwise precludes real career progression and ownership opportunities in our country. Madam Speaker, successful employment, training, promotion, and advancement of Caymanians requires a concerted and multidisciplinary, multi-ministerial, multidimensional, collective effort across these aisles and within this chamber and between public and private sector. Madam Speaker, as legislators, it is our role, it is our responsibility to create the laws to ensure that such opportunities are created and are adhered to. Madam Speaker, it is our responsibility to demand that these laws are then enforced by the agencies, by the departments, and by the boards that are set up to carry out what is required pursuant to these laws. Madam Speaker, even though not on its face, in my view, this motion attempts to address a fundamental issue at heart, a fundamental issue at the heart of our cultural and historical evolution as a country and as a people known as Caymanians. Madam Speaker, it begs the fundamental question, who and what are Caymanians? And Madam Speaker, without getting too much into a philosophical debate, very briefly, there are Caymanians by birth, there are Caymanians by family connections, there are Caymanians by status, there are long-time Caymanians, and there are just-come Caymanians, to name a few. But as I said before, we have the common theme, and that is we all have the right to be called and to be considered Caymanian. And there is no distinction under the law with respect to those of us having that privilege of being called Caymanian. But Madam Speaker, we also have the responsibility as Caymanians to ensure that our country continues to prosper and that Caymanians, all Caymanians, are given the fullest possible opportunities to succeed in the Cayman Islands, be it your only home, your first home, your second home, or otherwise. If the Cayman Islands is your home, then you have an obligation to ensure the future prosperity of our home, the future success and the future sustainability of our home. And Madam Speaker, if all Caymanians are able to succeed, then the society at large will succeed. Madam Speaker, to me, the essence of this motion can be summed up in the words of the American jurist and former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, when she said, and I quote, "Society as a whole benefits immeasurably from a climate in which all persons, regardless of race or gender, may have the opportunity to earn respect, responsibility, advancement, and remuneration based on ability," end quote. Madam Speaker, we have all heard the stories. As members, as elected representatives, we have all been beseeched by our constituents about the feeling of being discriminated against, being overlooked, being marginalized in the workplace because they're Caymanian. Let's face it. Let's call a spade a spade. I know I am not the only one in this chamber who have had those and similar complaints made to me and to other members in this House over the past 2.5 years, and some of you much longer than that. And Madam Speaker, these stories are not just coming from what some would like to pigeonhole as those persons being on the fringes of employment, those persons who don't have any discernible skills to speak of. But Madam Speaker, these accounts are also coming from the educated, they're coming from the competent, and they're coming from the ambitious Caymanians. And Madam Speaker, that should be a cause for concern for everyone within these hallowed halls. Madam Speaker, in many instances, it seems as if we have moved away as a country from a community and a business community that had an ethos where it was expected for them to hire and train young Caymanians, and those Caymanians transitioning into a different career or profession. We have moved away from that expectation where companies would take on school leavers, college graduates, and the like, and put them through the paces to develop the necessary skills to find meaningful careers. We have moved away from that in many respects to a community where, in some instances, businesses are seeking out what I call the prepackaged employees, those who are brought in from elsewhere who may or may not, Madam Speaker, have had the relevant training, the relevant exposure, or the relevant experience elsewhere in other jurisdictions. Having received training, Madam Speaker, and experience what would and is required to be provided to nationals in their own home countries. So, Madam Speaker, making it abundantly clear in this House and as legislators that the time has come to ensure that what is required in our immigration and other laws is actually carried out and enforced. Madam Speaker, this motion speaks specifically to utilizing the Immigration Accreditation Program to hold businesses accountable and to reward and acknowledge those businesses that hire, train, and promote Caymanians. Madam Speaker, this is something that I campaigned on to work with those business community partners who are stepping up and doing what they should be doing pursuant to the law, and those who are going above and beyond in some instances. We must recognize those good corporate citizens, Madam Speaker, who are doing, in many instances, what is expected of them pursuant to the law, and who go above and beyond in some instances. But equally, Madam Speaker, with respect to those business partners, or lack thereof, who, for whatever reason, are not stepping up and doing what is expected under the law, there must be similar consequences as well. Because, Madam Speaker, we have to ensure that the people in this country that have done their part, that is doing their part to ensure that they can provide the service necessary, that they are getting the education required in order to at least get a foot in the door to be able to develop on-the-job skills and additional specialized training if necessary. We must be able to provide those persons with the opportunities to do just that. And so, Madam Speaker, this immigration accreditation system, which this motion calls for, is contained in the National Priorities Plan of the independent members, but it is also similar to what was contained in the private members' motion brought by the 5th elected member in July of 2014 and passed in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, it's important for me to recognize at this stage, because I know how these things tend to go and how these things tend to be misconstrued in the media and otherwise. My rising to support this private member's motion is not an attempt to browbeat or to castigate the business community in any way. On the contrary, this is an attempt to encourage them to do what is right by the people of this country. This is an attempt for the government to do what is right by the people of this country. Madam Speaker, like many members in this chamber, I represent the new generation of Caymanians. Those who are educated at the top universities and those who have proven ourselves, proven our scholastic and other aptitudes on the global stage. Madam Speaker, like members of this chamber, I represent the new generation of elected officials. We are educated, we are accomplished in our own professional endeavors. Some of us have extensive and significant experience in the private sector, and we know what it means to compete and to excel in our careers, pre-politics and otherwise. And Madam Speaker, it is that combination of being grounded in who we are as a people, in being educated in our own respective professions, and being confident enough and articulate enough to stand and be counted is what gives me hope, Madam Speaker, that we will work to bring about the changes that is needed in this country in order to ensure that we continue to create an environment for future prosperity and future sustainability for our people for generations to come. We are not here beating our chest into the wind just to hear ourselves talk. We are not here bringing motions to the House or bringing legislation to the House or bringing movements in this country just because we're interested in getting reelected. Madam Speaker, we are here to deal with the real issues. As the new generation of elected officials, we were elected by our constituents to stand up, to be counted, and to bring forward the issues that many generations before have either neglected or did not see as politically expedient to address. Madam Speaker, like several others in this chamber, I chose to put myself forward to serve my country and to serve my people and to put the interests of my country first above my own personal and professional gain. Because, Madam Speaker, I was called to do so. And Madam Speaker, you know, to serve in this honorable house is a calling. To serve as an elected representative of the people is a calling. Because, Madam Speaker, as successful professionals, why else would we subject ourselves to the vitriol, to the castigation, to the aspersions that many of the armchair politicians and so-called political pundits so regularly throw at us when we attempt to address the critical issues facing this country, to address the inequities that exist, and to tackle the incidents of systemic discrimination that has crept into and is becoming entrenched in our society. As I said, Madam Speaker, speaking so candidly and so frankly about these issues, these aren't things that, as many people in this chamber have said before me, these aren't things that I just dreamt up or they just dreamt up. These are the issues that many of our constituents are coming to us on an almost daily basis, accounting stories that makes you want to think that you're actually listening to a Hollywood script in some regards. Because, Madam Speaker, we have to recognize that we as legislators have a responsibility to do our part. Our people have a responsibility to do their part. And the business community, the public sector, the employers, the creators of wealth in this community have a responsibility to do their part. Madam Speaker, the time has come for all of us to stand up and be counted. The time has come for us to do what is right for a number of stakeholders in this country. Specifically, it is time to do what is right for business. Yes, Madam Speaker, for business. To ensure the viability of business and to ensure the viability of the business community in this country. We need to have a thriving business community, and we need to have a responsive legislative environment which promotes a thriving and vibrant business community locally. And we need to be able to continue to compete in financial services, in tourism, in other key elements of our economy on the world stage, right here in the Cayman Islands. But, Madam Speaker, it is also time that we do what is right for the Caymanian people, especially those multi-generational Caymanians who are educated, who are capable, who are committed, and who must be given the opportunity to receive adequate and robust training, adequate and robust career progression, and ownership opportunities in our island paradise. And, Madam Speaker, looking after these two interests of these two stakeholders, the business community and the Caymanian people, these are not and cannot be seen as mutually exclusive. Madam Speaker, in fact, these two interests are interdependent because the business community will not thrive unless our people thrive. It is that simple. The business community will not thrive, Madam Speaker, in an environment of social unrest. So, Madam Speaker, as legislators, we must do all that we can within our power as legislators to try to stave off any potential for social unrest. As legislators, we must do all we can to encourage the business community to ensure that Caymanians are hired, to ensure that they are trained and promoted through the various levels, including ownership positions. But, Madam Speaker, as Caymanians, we too must do our part to ensure that we show up when those opportunities are given, that we step up when those opportunities are given, and that we demonstrate our willingness to be committed. We demonstrate our ability to do the tasks set before us, no matter where you are in the corporate ladder. Because, Madam Speaker, putting it very bluntly, we must crawl before we walk. There is no proverbial free lunches here, Madam Speaker, and I'm certainly not promoting, as I said, that idea or that mentality that being Caymanian in and of itself is a qualification. There should be no shortcuts to upward mobility and progression at the expense of developing and demonstrating competence, especially in the highly technical fields and professions within the financial services industry or otherwise. But, Madam Speaker, all things being equal, Caymanians must be given first opportunities, first priorities to succeed in our country. That is what you would get if you would go to any other country. And there is no reason for us to adopt any other mentality but to say, once we have stepped up, once we have done what we said we were going to do, once we have done what has been asked of us, we must be given clear pathways to success. And any structural, any artificial barriers that exist must be addressed head-on and directly to ensure that this island paradise continues to be just that for all who grace our shores. Madam Speaker, there must be a pathway for qualified Caymanians and those Caymanians who have the aptitude and the willingness to become qualified once given an opportunity. There must be a pathway which is clear of those obstacles due to either lack of adequate legislation, loopholes in the current legislation which are being exploited by some unscrupulous parties, or legislative provisions which lend itself to being used to the detriment of the advancement of my Caymanian people. Madam Speaker, I also want to make it very clear that in supporting this motion, I do not have any axe to grind. I have no notable personal negative experiences to speak of, which has prompted me to support this motion in particular or to get involved in politics in general. As I said earlier, Madam Speaker, I have been blessed to have been raised in a family that values and promotes a strong work ethic. I have been blessed to have been given and have taken advantage of educational and other career advancement opportunities throughout my life. I have been blessed to have been successful in all of my personal and professional pursuits to date, locally and abroad. And Madam Speaker, I have been blessed to be able to say that I can compete and excel on the world stage and at the top institutions in the world, should I choose to go that route again. But Madam Speaker, I've heard my colleagues across the hall mention something about never knowing hardship. And I just want to address that head on. Myself and many other successful people in this chamber, and as I said, we're all successful in our own right. We didn't get here by chance and we didn't get here by circumstance. We get here by hard work. We got here by tenacity, and we got here because of a sense of purpose. And Madam Speaker, be that what it may, as I said, we didn't elect this life, or we didn't choose this life because we wanted to take the easier road. At least I know I can certainly put hand on heart and say that. I have chosen to be exactly where I am today, Madam Speaker, because of my dedication and my commitment to my people. I have chosen to be an elected representative of my Caymanian people, and in particular, my people of West Bay, because I have been called to give back, to stand up, and to be counted. Madam Speaker, as a member of Cabinet, I have been blessed to be given the opportunity to move forward some key legislative, key programmatic, and other reforms in just 2 years on behalf of the government in areas that are vital to the enhancement and advancement of our people. Some reforms, Madam Speaker, that previous ministers and administrations have only talked about for decades before. Reforms such as, but not limited to, the introduction of a national minimum wage and the consultation drafts of the Education Bill, Labour Relations Bill, and the National Pensions Amendment Bill, to name a few, which, Madam Speaker, I'm sure you can appreciate, have all received numerous comments and feedback. And the Ministry is currently fastidiously working through this feedback in order to bring these bills forward in the new year. Madam Speaker, as a member of Cabinet, I will continue to advocate my fellow colleagues, and I will continue to advocate to see that these critical issues are addressed in a timely, rational, and progressive, with a small p, manner. Madam Speaker, I am but one, but I will continue to ensure that my vote will be cast and my opinion will be vociferously proffered, if need be, so that I can continue to hold my head high, to sleep good at night, knowing that I did my best for my people today and for as long as I'm given the opportunity and the privilege to serve. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. I recognize the Premier. Do you wish to give way to the second elected member, or second elected member, do you wish to give way to the Premier? I recognize the Honourable second elected member from the District of Georgetown.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to make this contribution in support of the private member's motion that is before us for debate today. I recognize that the hour is extremely late, and I, in light of that, will tailor my comments and make them very specific and focused with a view to limiting them, but not necessarily taken away in any way from my support for the private member's motion that is before us. Madam Speaker, the motion that is before us is truly, it is a noble one that seeks what is right, and I think what every citizen of this country ought to aspire for, and that is an opportunity to work, to progress and advance, and to make it to the highest levels of their own profession that they so choose to pursue. No one disagrees with that. That's what we would like to have for every person. Madam Speaker, I've heard all the debate this evening and the contributions, and just from my viewpoint, listening to it all, I've come away with a feeling that has been completely unbalanced and one-sided. Might want to say it's been bashed the private sector day. And what I wish to do in the minutes that I have, Madam Speaker, is to present a little bit of the other side of the story. Because there is another side. Not every business in this country is as bad or as uncaring as some have portrayed. Maybe not deliberately, but that's a clear message. Madam Speaker, when I started out my life as a professional, it was a totally different landscape. It was a totally different environment. But I have to say the issues were the same. At the time when I started my career, there were no scholarships available from the private sector. There certainly was no training program. And throughout my career, I had to endure the ridicule of my peers with regard to the value of the qualification that I had obtained. For reasons unknown to me, my qualification of being a certified public accountant from the US was not perceived as being as good as being a chartered accountant. That's the truth. And I had many debates with people about it. I was angry and researched it even further. No one could understand how someone could be a certified accountant rather than a chartered accountant. But that was the highest qualification you could obtain for an accountant if you were living and working in the United States. I learned very quickly in my career, Madam Speaker, that if I was to make it, I didn't have to be as good as my peers. I needed to be better. I had to work harder at it because I was one of a very few who at a time in the development of this country was trying to make it into a profession that itself was in its infancy and growth, but one which offered clear opportunities for those who chose to enter that profession. Madam Speaker, I was fortunate too at the time to work with people who were honorable men, whose word was their bond, and who at very early age, once I made my desires and my ambitions known, helped sketch out a plan that would ultimately lead to my progression in the firm and in the profession that would allow me the opportunity to make it to the very highest echelons of the profession. And I'm not seeking here to beat my own drum, but hard work, persistence, dedication, commitment to learn, to improve, and to mentor others ultimately led to my success. I not only rose to become the managing partner here in the firm, but I was also blessed to be appointed the managing director of the firm I worked with for 27 years. In my last 5 years, I was managing director of the office in the British Virgin Islands. So I have to say, I'm one of those that I helped blaze the trail, I think, for and helped to develop this profession that many sometimes today laud as being an example for others to follow. Madam Speaker, we have to ask the questions, why has some succeeded? Why is it that others are still struggling? And I have to believe firmly from my own experiences that part of the reason lies with the tone at the top. From a very early stage in my career, and talking with my former partners, they all had the view that if a firms were to succeed in Cayman, especially if they were foreign firms coming here to work, it was essential that local nationals be included and given opportunities to take up positions of leadership in those firms. And many of them, and I know that many today, follow that mantra and have that belief. I thank the member from East End. It's the only one that comment that I can recall this evening who even acknowledged that there are many good businesses in this country who do just that. But they all seem to have been lumped up with everyone else and being criticized for not doing it. And I know from talking to many, Madam Speaker, they are have disquiet and feel a bit disillusioned with the environment in that many do the right things, help train, mentor, promote, give opportunities to Caymanians, and make great strides in investing in their local talent, but never seem to get any credit for it. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Financial Services spoke about balance. That, I believe, is a critical part of how things have to be worked out if this effort is to be successful. Madam Speaker, I don't believe for 1 second this evening that the Caymanian dream is dead or is not alive or is dying. If I had that feeling, Madam Speaker, if I believed that, I wouldn't be here. And this would be a different place. Madam Speaker, I have 3 daughters that I've raised quite successfully, I believe, and who are all starting to take their rightful place in this community. I talk to them and they see a bright future. I talk to them, they want to make their life and their career here in Cayman. And they have a right and an expectation that there will be that opportunity for them. I have also one daughter too, who is at university, who is doing her master's degree in finance, and who will return to Cayman, take up her rightful place in this community, and make a valuable contribution. Another of my daughters is working overseas. She took a 2-year contract to work overseas in a foreign country to gain experience so that she could further her experience and her expertise in her chosen career. And she too is looking forward to coming back. They see a bright future here. I have not had anyone look at me, and certainly within my family, and I've seen nephews and nieces grow that do not believe that there is a future here for them in Cayman. But Madam Speaker, we've heard a lot of the discussion here today. And there is unquestionably no doubt that as a country, there are businesses, and as a country, we can do better. We can do more. There is, in my mind, a very clear need to ensure that legitimate advancement opportunities and growth opportunities exist for our people. If they're not growing and developing, Madam Speaker, they are dying. And I mean that figuratively. Doesn't matter what side of the track we come from, ma'am. We all have the opportunities. Yes, sir. And there is one area, Madam Speaker, that within this private member's motion, is a very broad resolution that asks governments to consider enforcing the existing laws, regulations, and policies and utilize the immigration accreditation program more fully to hold businesses more accountable, as well as to serve, reward, and acknowledge those businesses who hire, train, and promote Caymanians through various levels, including to ownership positions. Madam Speaker, that resolution is very broad in its scope, but there is one aspect of it that I have some serious concerns with, and that is a government getting itself involved in dictating and potentially legislating ownership in this country. I believe that is a very dangerous area for us to venture into and should be beyond the scope of a government's interests and activities. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I do look forward to the time when within our caucus we will discuss these issues and seek to identify what the real issues are and what the solutions ought to be. Madam Speaker, despite the challenges we have discussed here today, this country has had 2 generations of almost complete and unbridled prosperity. We wouldn't have had these discussions 8 years ago, prior to the recession. But I think a lot of some of what is transpiring today and the difficulties we have are as a result of the changes in the employment scene in Cayman and changes and the structural changes that are taking place in our economy following the recession of 2008. Madam Speaker, I've said this publicly in this assembly and outside. Life changed for many in 2008. It changed for this country. Jobs that were lost to the recession are no longer coming back. And adjustments are needed on a macro level with the population in order to adjust to the new reality. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Financial Services spoke about the need for balance. He's dead right, Madam Speaker. And I wish to reinforce and back his statements in that regard. As we move forward and we try to deal with these issues, we must always be reminded that the business community needs the appropriate climate and legislative framework in which to prosper and to function. Similarly, there is that balance that the working population, our citizens, need that environment too, where they have the ability, the opportunity, the education, and the desire, the commitment, where we have all those qualities to desire to progress and to succeed. They must be given that chance. Government's role, I see, is one in which is to create the environment for businesses and the country to succeed. Together, Madam Speaker, we can make it work if there is that desire to achieve that balance and for us to have that spirit of partnership. That is absolutely essential in order to succeed. Madam Speaker, if we legislate it and make the environment so difficult and contrarian for the business community to succeed, they simply move up and they move elsewhere. And then the jobs we are seeking for our people to rightfully take up, they will disappear along with the businesses that are there to support it. So I urge balance. I urge us to take this motion now and move forward with it and try to identify the issues and the changes that are needed in order to ensure that our Caymanian people can truly achieve the very best for themselves in terms of their progression and ability to live, work, and prosper within the Cayman Islands. Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute. I commend the motion to the House, and I look forward to voting on it at the appropriate time, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the hour is late. The day has been long, and I really had not intended to contribute to the debate on this motion, particularly given the contribution of the Minister for Financial Services and Commerce, who I think comprehensively set out the government's position with respect to this matter. Madam Speaker, the amended motion is in terms that I entirely support, in that it calls for the government to consider amendments to business licensing laws with a view to removing restrictions to employment, training, development, and ownership opportunities for Caymanians, and further that it considers, which it already does anyhow, enforcing existing laws, regulations, and policies, and utilizes the immigration accreditation program, which doesn't yet exist actually, more fully to hold businesses more accountable, as well as to reward and acknowledge those businesses that hire, train, and promote Caymanians through various levels, including the ownership positions. I could not have said that, Madam Speaker, about the original motion, which, quite frankly, calls for radical changes to the entire construct of business in Cayman by providing for the removal of all exemptions in the trade and business license law and the local companies control law. And so when the member from East End talks about diluting the original motion, I suspect, Madam Speaker, that he has not carefully considered the impact that would have on businesses, and that it would in effect amount to expropriation of assets of shareholders in various businesses, including banks, trust companies, insurance companies, and the like. But those are matters which the government did have regard to and did succeed in persuading the fifth elected member for Georgetown that the government could not accept a motion in those terms. Madam Speaker, as I said, I had not intended to speak to this motion. And because I support the terms, and as I said, I think the government's position had already been adequately articulated. So it is not the motion in its current form that gives me concern, but indeed, Madam Speaker, some of the rhetoric that has been expounded over the course of this debate is of great concern and worry to me. And I have no doubt, given comments and so forth that I've received in advance of this debate, that it is also and will also be of great concern to the business community and indeed the broader community. The Minister for Financial Services and Commerce spoke about the need for balance. What he said has been endorsed by the second elected member for Georgetown, who spoke just now, and I thought spoke eloquently about the fact that there is more than one side to this story. Madam Speaker, I heard comments from the other side about he comes from the other side of the track and so forth and so on. Madam Speaker, they generally, at least when we were growing up, wasn't much difference between the two sides of the track. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, that as you well know, because we are of the same era, if I may call it that now, we're getting so old. But I got where I got by my dint of my own hard work and determination and an opportunity provided. I didn't even know what a silver spoon was, let alone to have one in my mouth. I got no government scholarship or any other scholarship. I worked my way 5 years through law school. So no one need to talk about different sides of the track when it comes to me. Madam Speaker, I have 2 sons and a wife. My wife is a lawyer, not so long qualified. Took her the best part of 10 years because she did it part-time while she worked. My son has just finished 5 years in the UK. I hope he comes back at Christmas and decides to go start his articles. When I was elected, I was 39 years old. I had been a partner in a law firm for 7 years. Such money as I made has long gone after 15 years in politics and 2 sons in private school and university, one still there. So if anybody thinks in this house that they have any greater skin in the game about prospects in the financial services industry or in business in Cayman than I do, then I want them to show me. Because when my term here is over, because I can tell you this, I don't intend, if I live to be a few years longer, to be in here as some doddering old fool. I will know, if the people don't decide before when to depart, this, and I can promise you, I will have to go work somewhere again. And the only business I know besides politics is law. So I have 3 of us at the moment. I don't know what Kaylan's going to do, who are committed to a legal career. So they can get up here and shout all they want about and throw the slurs and infer that some of us on this side have some ulterior motive in supporting a legal practitioner's bill. Madam Speaker, my father always told me, that children and fools should never see anything half done. Madam Speaker, since I was an article clerk in 1983, there has been talk about the need for a legal practitioner's law, a new one. I don't know how many attempts we've had at it. And anyone who truly believes that a 1969 piece of legislation that was crafted at a time when Cayman had, I think there were 10 lawyers. I think there were six who subscribed to the Law Society articles, my grandfather being one of them. And a lot of them were law agents at the time, that thinks that is something that Cayman can continue to hold up as the basis for administering and governing the legal profession, which now approaches some 600 lawyers are living in some past age. And anybody who infers that people like myself and the Minister for Financial Services, because we are older, because we have had some limited success, it seems, are somehow or would somehow be party to some legislation which is going to undermine the prospects of Caymanian lawyers, are people who are doing it purely for their own purposes. Madam Speaker, when any of them have done as much and given as much and sacrificed as much as myself in politics, a life in politics, and the Minister for Financial Services for his contributions in training Caymanians, covering the cost of scholarships, not to talk about the amount of mentoring he has done, then they can start to complain. Madam Speaker, I did what I did. I gave up the prospects of making some decent money because I felt this was my calling. I still feel it is my calling. I wanted to make a contribution to my country and to my people. I never cry, I never whine, I never moan about the money that I have foregone. I have owned no businesses, I own no businesses. I have no stake in the game, I own nothing to anybody else but the people of this country who elected me. And I really, Madam Speaker, resent it when those kind of inferences are made. And I hear the slurs, and I hear the talk. Not everything that I hear do I take up and take issue with. But as I said before, no one in this house, their integrity is no more important to them than Alvin McLaughlin. It's all I have to leave for my children. That's all I have. That's all my father gave me. He's 89 years old. If I was sitting around waiting for him to leave me something, gray hair would trip me up long before I would get anything. I've made my way in this life by dint of hard work, determination, with a little help here and there. I ask for nothing, absolutely nothing, but health and guidance and judgment from God. Nobody needs to give me anything. Make everybody understand that very clearly. In this house, I am speaking because I really resent inferences about what motivates me and where I stand on things. Nothing but the way I feel and principle guides my judgment and my determination. But no one, while I am Premier, is going to lead me down a path which is going to destroy the very industry, the very business opportunities that they claim they're fighting for. Because when the businesses are gone, when we make it so unwelcoming that those who invest in Cayman, who set up firms in Cayman, who set up businesses in Cayman say, you know what, I had enough of this. We really believe Cayman is the only place in the world that businesses want to come and invest. Some people need to take a few trips around and understand how hard life is for many in our region who would die for the opportunities that Cayman has, because people and businesses, international businesses, regard this as a good place to come and invest, a good place to do business, a good place to work, a good place to live, a good place to raise their families. Do I believe that there are firms and businesses that treat Caymanians unfairly? Absolutely. It ever has been. Do I believe we need to do more to ensure that Caymanians have a greater chance at economic opportunities, upward mobility, promotion in law firms and accounting firms and banks? Absolutely, Madam Speaker. So that is not my issue. As I said, it is the rhetoric that scares me about how bad business is and how terrible they are. When they all gone away, what are we going to do? Madam Speaker, I've never been afraid of physical labor. I grew up doing it. But I don't really believe that that can sustain the kind of lifestyle that any of us want anymore. Do we all understand where the world is? That this recovery, this economic recovery, is still very fragile? Do we understand the challenges, particularly financial services, is facing? Do we understand how vulnerable a place like Cayman is? The last thing we want as members of this House is to send the signal that foreign business and foreigners and anyone who was not born in this place and of Caymanian parents are unwelcome. And that is the clear message I got from a number of the speeches that were made in this House over the course of this day. I worry about that, Madam Speaker. I truly worry about that. Cayman is a treasure. Caymanian people are some of the most wonderful, welcoming, engaging, friendly people in the world. It's in large part what has made us what we are. But, Madam Speaker, we need to understand in this House that it is important that we don't just welcome the tourists and say hi, but we do the same with respect to business and business people. And we don't create a sense of resentment and feeling. I'm not going to name any of the countries because I don't want to offend any of our neighbors. But the number of times I've had business people, lawyers, bankers, investors say to me, we were in a certain country, and yes, they have great amenities, but we didn't feel welcome. We felt a great sense of resentment by the local people to us being there. Cayman is different. And that's why we want to live in Cayman and do business in Cayman. Those sort of intangibles, Madam Speaker, are so critical to what we have in Cayman, to the opportunities for my children and your children and everyone's children. So, as I said, Madam Speaker, I don't have any difficulty at all supporting the amended motion in this form. But I could not sit quietly and let people who may be listening to this debate or who may read what is reported believe that I, as Premier, subscribe to that anti-expat, anti-business sentiment which I heard expressed by some members of this House. Because I do not. I do not. And I will not allow the government which I have the honor and privilege to lead to be branded with that. Because that is not what we stand for. We understand that unless business is vibrant, unless we understand unless we understand that unless business is successful, there are no opportunities for anybody. And those who come from somewhere else can as easily move somewhere else. But for the rest of us who are of this place, our options are greatly limited. Madam Speaker, I urge members of this House, regardless of their personal experiences, to be able to see the bigger picture and to understand that in trying to right the wrongs and fix the things that need fixing, we should not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let us not create an atmosphere and an environment of feeling that we don't want foreigners here, that we don't want foreign business, foreign investment, that we want it all for ourselves. They can come and bring it, but then they have to go because it's ours. We need to encourage them by whatever means we can to make it easier for Caymanians to share in the economic opportunities, the employment opportunities, the wealth. But not, Madam Speaker, as a result of us having expelled all of them from this place. And so, Madam Speaker, it is that kind of balance that the Minister for Financial Service was speaking about. It's that kind of perspective, I believe, that the second elected member from Georgetown was trying to get the House to appreciate. And so, Madam Speaker, I felt it important that as the Premier of this country and the leader of this government, that I make those points. I know, Madam Speaker, there will be some who will take offense at them, so be it. I certainly, Madam Speaker, took grave offense at some of the things that were said, which I took, given my experiences and where I've come from, must have been directed at least at me, perhaps not me alone, but certainly I was included in the criticisms that were being leveled. So that's how it is, Madam Speaker. Debate is point and counterpoint. And I believe, Madam Speaker, I have made my point.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the third elected member from the District of West Bay.
Madam Speaker, I too, like the Premier, had no intentions of speaking tonight. There's something very personal going on in my family that I felt I should be attending to. But I'd promised the fifth elected member from Georgetown that I would support this bill. This motion, thank you, Mr. Premier. But I want to start off by saying to the Premier that one of the few times I ever came in this house before, he was on this side, and I heard him and the former Premier going at it, and I want to compliment him on sounding like the former Premier just now in defending the business community. Now I see where the member from East End says something is going on. So, very much alike. But the second elected member from Georgetown, Madam Speaker, gave me reason to stand here tonight. And I should have known, suspected, I'm starting to learn. I've sat here a long time and observed and tried to learn. The Premier told me that, and so did the member who motioned, second this motion. And when he said that it seemed to be pound the business or beat up on the business night, Madam Speaker, or something in that context. But Madam Speaker, there's an old saying, who the cap fits, let them wear it. I've heard almost every speaker said, or every member of this house who spoke say, that they are good business members in the community. But for too long, some in particular have been allowed to get away with murder. That's what I heard. I then heard him go on to say the part about balance. I heard balance from three different people. I can say this, the balance is very strange. To me, the word balance, and I'm sure if you Google it, it says 2 pounds on this side, 2 pounds on this side is balance. I then heard him say, and I happen to know them, they're beautiful people, Madam Speaker, about the prospects for his 3 children. It prompted someone over this side to say, from a different side of the road, Madam Speaker, or the tracks. The Premier jumped up on top of that, but that is not what the member from East End meant when he said that. And I'm going to explain that little piece and use an example. The member from Georgetown, the second elected member, Madam Speaker, is a multimillionaire, and I'm proud and happy for him. And I remember seeing him with his little private Cessna, and I thought I was a proud, being a former air traffic control, I was proud the day I saw that man there with his little private plane. The Cessna, I can't remember what number it was, but it was a nice little Cessna. Now I'm going to compare the balance and the prospects for his 3 children and a little young lady from Windsor Park. Madam Speaker, I've spoken about it here before. Her mother mortgaged the house to send her to FIT. Madam Speaker, she comes back and is working very well with a company. Decides she wants to go into hospitality. Madam Speaker, she then goes off on a nation-building scholarship, and the three people that interviewed her, the director of tourism, the owner of 3 restaurants and the manager for one of the hotels, they all told me personally, because I knew of the lady because she volunteered to help during Pirates Week. And she was as sharp as a tack, Madam Speaker. A younger version of yourself, coming from the same side of the tracks too. Madam Speaker, she gets honors graduating in Scotland, then works over in Europe, then comes home. Sorry to say, at the time, the former director of tourism had left. Interviewed with the Department of Tourism, and you got more conflicting stories than you hear inside here from 7 different lawyers. Madam Speaker, the hotel manager that interviewed her and said she was a diamond couldn't hire her because he had a 7-year Canadian who spoke 3 languages, and he didn't want to get rid of her to replace her or to train this young lady to come up in his thing. She waited tables and all kind of stuff till she finally, Madam Speaker, to try to pay back, to help her mother save her house from the first student loan, she took a job in another industry that she didn't really want to. The prospects are good. Yes, they are. Make me tell you, Madam Speaker, how it works. When my daughter first came out of school, she was trained to be a civil engineer. She went with a company that's now gone called Asphaltic. Luckily, Madam Speaker, there was a young man from Northside who took my daughter under his wing. McCoy, I can't remember his first name. Trent McCoy. God bless that young man. You know what the people, certain higher people in Asphaltic were doing? They had their children in a quantity surveyor company getting experience, and the people from the quantity surveyor company had their children in the Asphaltic getting experience. That's how they look out for each other. That's how they get to move ahead. That's the balance. In which direction again? Once again, we have good employees. I can name one. I've heard there's 2 people on that side, I'm not going to single out anybody, that come from one of the big companies. I've heard a lot of bad things about those. And these days I like to hear the names when they talk about how much Caymanians they brought through. One of these days I'm going to ask them, list out the Caymanians and look at the type of Caymanians they probably brought through. I hope I'm surprised, but I doubt it. But when the other hand, Madam Speaker, you look at a company, and I will call that one out, Ernst & Young. Look at the quality and who they have made senior partners and who have come through. I bet you none of them can't touch Ernst & Young. Madam Speaker, the balance. Like I said, who the cap fit, let them wear it. We have good employees, and we at times make it harder for them. But Madam Speaker, I'm going to wrap up right here now. Like I said, I had no intentions of getting up here. But I'm going to ask this House another question that should come off of this motion. An 18-year-old young lady just came to me a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. She just finished her A-levels at the alma mater, the premier at prep school. I think she said she had 2 or 3 A-levels. And she asked me a question that I could not answer, Madam Speaker. She said, why is it that everybody that comes here to work have to stay? Why is it, Madam Speaker, that we do everything to keep them here instead of letting them come, make some money, and go out? And you have to bring someone else in until one of us are ready. But why is it that we have to keep them here for 7 or 8 years, that they are entitled to certain things? Whereas if we make them go the way Bermuda do it and other countries do it, then the locals have a chance to attain something. But once we give them PR, like the Teleps did, and the other giveaway before, it makes it difficult for our people. To the 5th elected member from Georgetown, I kept my word. The only thing I did wrong, I say I had nothing to say, I was just going to vote with you. But when I heard about this balance, and I heard about this, prospects are good, I am happy that he can say that for his family or for others, But I know this much. The majority of Caymanians do not feel that way. Madam Speaker, a young man got fired from a radio station because he spoke about a revolution. The member from Northside one day inside here repeated something that I had heard myself on 4 different occasions from 4 other people. And the newspapers took him to task, said he was talking bloodshed or something. I can't remember exactly because I've avoided the papers for a long time. Madam Speaker, this second elected member from Georgetown, and I agree with what the Premier said. He has to defend his integrity. But the thing I'm speaking on is that I do not see it where we are attacking business. We know we need business. The whole thing is, those that are doing these sins, we have things in place and we have rules in place, Madam Speaker, and we have not used them. Let us use them to protect our people. I'm not getting up here saying nothing that's, I've been here now just like everyone else, 2.5 years, and I've not attacked anyone, and I have no intention. I just went after the balance and the prospects. I can tell the second elected member from Georgetown, the people out there don't feel that and they don't see it. Madam Speaker, sorry. I too support this bill, and I hope that we see the fruition of it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the 6th elected member from Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I realize I was late and I certainly will not be long. I'm actually not feeling the best right now. And more than anyone else would like to get home tonight. But Madam Speaker, I just wanted to rise and say a few brief words, as I feel that as the day has progressed, we have, in my opinion, humble opinion, have lost focus on some of the key points brought in this private member's motion today. And Madam Speaker, it reads here in the second whereas, as past governments of the Cayman Islands implemented successful laws, regulations, and policies, which encouraged inward investment and employment opportunities for Caymanians. A second phase is now required to ensure proper training, promotion, skill transfer, and a greater stake in business by Caymanians in order to have a more prosperous economy which predominantly benefits Caymanians. And Madam Speaker, for me, I think that is the issue we're talking about here. The laws are in place, Madam Speaker. We all, every single one of us on this side of the room, a couple of years ago, or it feels like more than that, spent countless hours in caucus, 2 days, 3 days in a row, discussing amendments to the immigration bill. I remember leaving here at 9 o'clock at night, tired, and making my way over to the Emsler Church to sit down for another couple of hours for public consultation on the immigration bill. We, everybody in this room, all the members in this hallowed halls, were here until 2:30 in the morning. I remember I was traveling on a 7 a.m. flight that morning. So I left here, went home, had a shower, a quick nap, and then went to the airport for the amendments to the immigration law. Madam Speaker, what it comes down to is A, enforcement of the laws. It's not painting with a broad brush that the entire business sector is bad, but we've all agreed that there are a few rogue employers out there. And Madam Speaker, wherever there is an opportunity or whenever there is a time that laws are not being enforced, even the best of us tend to slip and take it for granted because that law is not being enforced. How long was the seatbelt law in place before they started to enforce it? How many of us really wore a seatbelt until they started writing tickets for it? So, Madam Speaker, I feel that, as we have all agreed, the laws are there. We just need to see the enforcement of those laws. And Madam Speaker, we as a country, and this is not today, this is not yesterday, this is going back years. We as a country have got to decide what our priorities are. We decided to build larger prisons a long time ago. We're building more roads. We heard about the port, we heard about the airport, everything we're doing. But what are we doing to ensure that all of our people, not just those who graduated university at the best universities or wherever, but all of our people are being given the opportunity, and where they have fallen by the wayside, where they did not do so well in theory in high school, are then retooled or given an opportunity in a more technical school to equip themselves to go out and make an honest living. Where is the agency that we are putting the efforts, the resources, the time, and the money into that are going to identify these so-called unemployables and take them and retool them or put them through rehabilitation if they should have an alcohol or a drug problem? Where is the agency and the time and the resources and the money that we should put towards early intervention of our young people who are identified, who have been identified at a very early age as having a tough home life or perhaps some learning challenges? Not everyone learns in the classroom, Madam Speaker. Some people need to use their hands to learn. Some people have to use experience to learn. In fact, the way they teach by writing on the board is only applies to less than half of the type of personalities, the most common types of personalities. Most people have to use their hands and participate in order to learn, not just to read and retain it. So, Madam Speaker, these are the deeper issues. I think it was my colleague from Bordentown, the fourth elected member from Bordentown, talked about a plan. And he's absolutely right. We have to look at a bigger plan, a much larger plan. Because as a government, what this government and many others before have done and what we have focused on are the things that we are challenged on a day-to-day basis, and that is to create an environment for the country to prosper and ultimately the people to prosper. But the people cannot prosper and cannot take advantage of the environment created, of the development, if they don't have the tools to do so. We have got to encourage our people to understand that they're not out there looking for a job. They should be out there looking for a career. And a career does not mean a master's degree or a legal degree, but a career means something that you're going to apply yourself and do your very best at and become the best at that thing and build yourself a good life. Get a paycheck year after year. Be headhunted because you are the best of whatever that is. Whether that is a mason or a plumber, or whether that is a lawyer or a doctor or a gardener. There are many, many opportunities out there that we still, as Caymanians, do not take advantage of. Many in the hospitality industry, many in the technical field. We need technical schools. We need technicians out there. We need people that can work on gas equipment, stoves, refrigerators. We need people that can work on medical equipment. We have new medical tourism facilities popping up all over. We see growth in the area of production, video production, movie production. Where are we putting the efforts in? Where are we providing the support for our young people in these areas? Madam Speaker, I, like many of us in here, go through the newspaper every day, looking through the classifieds. I must admit that I don't go through the classifieds looking for bad advertisers. I go through the classified looking for jobs to match persons that have come to see me that are unemployed. And Madam Speaker, the jobs that I see advertised on a daily basis are technical jobs. They're landscaping jobs, they're plumbing jobs, they're electrical jobs. And then there are jobs at the very top that are being advertised with all the experience and everything else. But very rare, and I say this because I religiously check the newspaper, do you find those middle jobs. And those are the ones that we have predominantly, as a people, dominated in the area. And that says to me, when I don't see the legal secretaries and administrative secretaries, etc., being advertised, that as far as I know, you have to advertise for a work permit. And that indicates to us that that sector, A, has shrunk because of automation, because of companies coming together and sharing resources. They go in one building, they share a boardroom, they share administration, receptionists, they share computer services. And also that we have not seen growth in that industry because we've seen banks, firms relocate, downsize. We've seen the disappearance just about of private banking. So, Madam Speaker, again, I think that we have to look at this in a much more holistic view. We cannot go out there in a knee-jerk reaction and start to beat the stick on everyone. But we need to enforce our laws. We need to become creative and implement things such as the immigration accreditation system designed by our own deputy governor. And then we also need to put our money, our time, and our efforts into developing our people to the fullest from the bottom up, Madam Speaker, from the bottom up. We have a special country, and our strengths are that we're safe. We have a modern infrastructure. In October 2012, Forbes magazine said we were the friendliest place on earth. We do not want to change that. All we want is for our people to have the opportunities that should be afforded to them and for them to be prepared to make the most of it when those opportunities come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I'll call on the mover to exercise his right of reply if he so wishes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do wish to exercise my right. Madam Speaker, after proposing the motion, sat quietly and watched the debate unfold. What I didn't see were people grandstanding or playing too much politics. Madam Speaker, we each in our own way spoke about either personal experiences or experiences shared with us by our constituents. Madam Speaker, motion as amended was described in a few ways. And I looked at it, I had to wonder if it was my motion at all that people were speaking about. Because, Madam Speaker, I'll start with that. I'll just go through what I was trying to bring to this House with this motion. And it was very simple, Madam Speaker. It's to build on what past governments started. It was to ensure proper training, promotion, skills transfer, and a greater stake in businesses by Caymanians. I don't think in my motion I once lumped businesses in one pot. In fact, I was very deliberate, as I always am, Madam Speaker, in my contributions, because I'm not someone who takes extreme views. I speak in considered tones, taking both sides of the coin into equation all the time. Madam Speaker, it also talked about enforcing existing laws, regulations, and policies. Madam Speaker, I also included the immigration accreditation program that the Premier rightly pointed out that was not in place yet. Madam Speaker, in July 2014, I asked this Honorable House and proposed a motion to bring into play an immigration accreditation program within 6 months. I'm not a mathematician, Madam Speaker. I think 6 months has come and gone. And the whole reason why I brought that into play to begin with is not to have a stick approach to business, but to have a carrot approach to reward good behavior and to encourage others to do the right thing and be good corporate citizens in this country that affords them so much. Madam Speaker, my motion ended up saying we want to reward and acknowledge those businesses that hire, train, and promote Caymanians through various levels, including the ownership positions. That was motion 14. Madam Speaker, I hear a lot of talk about balance. Balance goes both ways, Madam Speaker. I don't have any axe to grind, Madam Speaker. I reached the pinnacle of my chosen profession as an equity partner in a funds fiduciary business. I chose to give that up to get into politics because I did see where other Caymanians weren't getting the same opportunities that I got. And I saw that some of the actions by existing politicians were not things that I wanted to emulate or to allow to exist. Because like everybody in here, Madam Speaker, we have reputations as individuals, we have reputations as a country to put in the forefront. I've also heard, Madam Speaker, that this is Bash the Private Sector Day. And Madam Speaker, I can't speak for everyone in these hallowed halls, but I certainly did not bash any private sector. I spoke, again, very balanced, in my opinion, about the fact that the accountants both fall under TBL and LCCL laws, and yet they still don't have 60-40 Caymanian participation. So going under those laws doesn't mean that businesses wake up tomorrow and they have to put Caymanians in place and change their structures, because those that show the necessary specified in law points, they get their LCCL, Madam Speaker. But what I was trying to ensure, Madam Speaker, and what my motion spoke about, were those professions in the higher echelons that pay very good salaries that Caymanians can do. They should not be unintentionally closed off to Caymanian participation because they fall outside of the laws that we've put in place to ensure that Caymanians are at least considered for ownership in businesses in Cayman. Madam Speaker, I also spoke about the fact that I understood business, how it works, and what it needs. I'm not one of these people, Madam Speaker, and you can check any Hansard record piece that I've spoken or written talking about businesses going home. I also spoke about the fact that I got a lot of opportunities because of businesses in the Cayman Islands. And it's my wish and my hope that those opportunities exist for this generation and those coming after. But let's talk about the balance, Madam Speaker. Those businesses, no matter how big, no matter how important, no matter what they bring to these islands, there is an obligation under our laws that they hire, train, and promote Caymanians. And Madam Speaker, in my contribution, I reminded the 9 lawyers in here that not only should we insist that the laws are designed to benefit Caymanians first, and Cayman second, that they're enforced. So, Madam Speaker, like I said, I can't speak for anyone else in their contributions. But please don't bastardize my motion, which was a simple motion talking about talking about empowering Caymanians and rewarding good behavior. Madam Speaker, we talk about sending wrong messages to the business community. But what about sending the right message to Caymanians? What about telling them that as their government, we don't need to wave sticks and we don't need to beat down doors, but we need to have proper dialogue at tables where we look people squarely in the eye and tell them what's expected and where we all fit in this equation. Madam Speaker, I truly believe Cayman can stand out and be different. All I'm saying is that we need to look at history and not repeat it. In very successful jurisdictions, Madam Speaker, and I heard places like Bahamas and Bermuda and Jamaica spoken about. But in other places, including Singapore, Malta, all these other successful jurisdictions, Madam Speaker, national participation is required. Madam Speaker, leadership means sometimes standing up for what is right, and also, and I'm just reiterating what I said before, for those who are not in the position to. Because some of us have put in a lot of time, energy, and polished our craft, but it wasn't without mentoring people taking some sort of liking to us, those of us who got that, and a bit of luck as well, Madam Speaker. Right place, right time. Madam Speaker, I've long advocated putting proper systems in place. And before, in my contribution, Madam Speaker, I tried not to get personal. I talked very generically. I talked about what businesses should be doing, what their obligations were under the law. But Madam Speaker, I have had the same experiences that some people spoke about, where I was told that even at a partnership level, that I needed to say Cayman instead of Cayman because that's what they were used to hearing. I won't repeat what I said to my partner at the time, Madam Speaker, but suffice it to say that he never corrected me once after that. Madam Speaker, we can stand up for our rights without offending. Every time we say that Caymanians should come first, it should not be something we say in hushed tones, worried that with every utterance, a business is going to close its doors and leave. Madam Speaker, we can have symbiotic relationships where both sides prosper. Madam Speaker, second elected member from Georgetown in his contribution touched on the accounting profession. And it's something that a number of people in their contributions today touched on as well. So again, let's see where this was just a bashing of the private sector day. He said in his profession, there were clear opportunities set out for him. Firms were run by honorable men. Their word was their bond. He benefited from a planned progression plan. And it gave him the opportunity to get to the highest role in the firm. Isn't that it, Madam Speaker? As simple as that, articulated by the second elected member from Georgetown. Isn't that what we've been saying all along, Madam Speaker? The answer is so simple. Yet we have to sit here for 12 hours and debate this topic. Because nothing's wrong. Madam Speaker, we can't discount people's personal experiences. A lot of people in here today spoke about how they've been treated, which is a very personal thing. And some of us have been treated very differently than others. But that's not to mean that we have to discount the other's perspective. Madam Speaker, my motion, and again I'm going to stress this, sought simply to remove artificial barriers to Caymanian progression and Caymanian success. And I dare anybody in here to say that they don't exist, that it's some figment of our collective imagination. I also don't think anyone was talking about destroying businesses in Cayman as was articulated late in the evening. But Madam Speaker, Caymanians must be given real opportunities. And Madam Speaker, we have the examples like the last two members last three members spoke about. And what that shows me, Madam Speaker, is that it can be done. And it can be done very simply with 4 simple ingredients. And wouldn't it be great if every business in Cayman used 4 simple ingredients and got the same results as the profession that the second elected member from Georgetown is so rightly proud of. Madam Speaker, people will say it's not that simple. I disagree with that 100 times over. If given the opportunity and people prove themselves, then they should be given consideration to rise to the highest points in their firms. And I call it the truth serum, Madam Speaker. Because you see, if they get the opportunities and they prove themselves, their employers will have to consider a few things. One, we've got someone here that's worth keeping because they're very good. We've got someone who hasn't proven themselves, so we can justify letting them go. And there's a third, Madam Speaker, and it's, well, I don't have any room at the top, but because they're so good, I might have to make some special concessions because I don't want them going to a competitor or setting themselves up and competing with me. But they should have that process, Madam Speaker, with clear goals, clear targets that allow people to prove themselves. You shouldn't be discounted before you get in the door because of how you speak, the color of your skin, your schooling, etc. If people are serious about creating meritocracies, then prove it. Put the systems in place. Put the people through the paces. Give them enough rope to either pull themselves up or hang themselves. And Madam Speaker, just for clarity again, lest my statements, my motion, my sentiments get confused. I said this earlier as well. I do not believe that Caymanian is a qualification. But I do believe in equality of opportunity. And businesses that are here, like they would do in any first world country, anywhere, Madam Speaker, must look at diversity and must look at equality of opportunity. We're not asking for anything that other jurisdictions in first world countries don't ask of businesses. And it's not like the businesses that are here don't know it, are not used to it. But if we allow them to, they will choose not to. Madam Speaker, I guess at this stage I should thank the government for its support of my motion. Well, actually, my amended motion. But I'm going to talk, Madam Speaker, about uniformity as well. What is the basis of having so many different licensing regimes with exemptions, etc.? Shouldn't we be seeking to simplify and clarify? Those same firms that the second elected member from Georgetown spoke about, a number of them are licensed under the Trade and Business License Law or have LCCL exemptions or license because they're exempted. Madam Speaker, I changed my original motion to clear up some of the ambiguity raised by members in my caucus. I didn't see that it was necessary, but I chose the compromise. Putting everyone under the same licensing regime and having the necessary carve-outs is my way, Madam Speaker, of ensuring that Caymanians at least get considered as part of the equation. Because we've heard the exemptions. And Madam Speaker, whether people like to admit it or not, they do create barriers for Caymanians entering into some professions that they're clearly qualified for. And again, as legislators, it's incumbent on us to remove barriers for our people, not again with any stick. And again, the immigration accreditation program was not designed to be a stick, Madam Speaker. It was actually the opposite. It was to reward good behavior. So I hope that that program is quickly put in place, because I do think that that will go a long way to redressing and addressing some of the issues that we find. Madam Speaker, I'd like to clarify something as well, and I can't remember who said it. I should have written it down. No one here today, from my recollection, said that we're advocating that someone must be made up as a partner in any firm. I don't know if your records say different. But again, people have to be given the opportunity to acquire the skills that could make them partner. Because, Madam Speaker, it's just like the lottery. If you don't buy the ticket, the one thing that you're sure of is not winning the prize. Madam Speaker, the other thing that no one in here can say with a clear conscience is that we don't have a history of perceived or actual abuses towards Caymanians. At the same time, we have examples of where Caymanians have risen to some lofty heights. Madam Speaker, my balanced approach to this as well was to speak to some of those people that had gotten to those lofty heights and speak about their journey from start to finish. And one of them said something very profound to me, Madam Speaker. And it goes back to something that the second elected member from Georgetown said, that when he joined the profession, his CPA was looked down upon. And it was considered less than a CA. Madam Speaker, that highlighted to me some of the situations that currently exist. Those at the top make the rules. And what that partner said to me was that he was told he would never be anything more than an auditor. And now he runs an entire region, Madam Speaker. And he sits at the top, at the head table in the international board. Madam Speaker, one thing he said was that the profession came together in its totality, aided by some of those honorable men that second elected member spoke about. And they stood up together and they fought for their rights. And had they not, the powers that be, those in charge, had labeled them already. And it clearly pointed out to me, Madam Speaker, that without sometimes intervention by political or other means, you will be typecast for all eternity. And but for that intervention, your life, your family's life, your lifestyle could be very unbalanced. Madam Speaker, a number of the roles that I spoke about earlier are not overly complicated. We just pretend that they are. There could easily be greater employment of Caymanians like it was when they actually started out. And Caymanians rising to higher spots if given training and given opportunity. Madam Speaker, no one can tell me otherwise, although they've tried, that the TBL/LCCL regime can't work for most businesses in Cayman. Because it doesn't enforce 60-40 ownership if special conditions exist. And like anything, we can delineate what those special conditions are. But what it does, it puts in place a mechanism whereby Caymanians have to be considered. It levels the playing field. Madam Speaker, and if we don't level that playing field, all the typecast are going to become self-fulfilling prophecies, Madam Speaker. And then you'll get stories of disgruntled Caymanians wanting to tear everything down. Madam Speaker, again for clarity, lest my deliberations here are taken out of context. I never once advocated for people tearing everything down. I simply said that people that come to me express this, and it's an outside risk that the country and the government has to take on board and consider when making any adjustments or when enforcing our existing laws. Because we do know that it can happen based on historical reference. If we create an efficient, fair, and streamlined method of regulation, which includes enabling businesses that are foreign owned or branches to become operational, faster, then we will have created something under that regime that works for Caymanians, foreign investors, but most especially works for Cayman. Madam Speaker, honest, open dialogue, or what we like to call in Cayman, straight talk, causes no fallout. Nobody has to raise their voices. Nobody has to beat their chests. But people have to sit at the same table. And like anything in life, it's a negotiation and a meeting of the minds. Madam Speaker, I spoke earlier about my vision for Cayman, that we could all exist and prosper. Nothing will dim that vision. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's what lets me continue to fight for my people. And everyone has their way of fighting and articulating and everything else. And I'm not going to sit here and say someone else's is wrong. But I'm also not going to sit here and have people tell me that mine is wrong. Because for at least 17 more months, I have that ability to speak my mind, vote my conscience, and stand up for what I believe in for my people. And I will continue to do that until either the people of Georgetown and in the next election of one of the boundaries says otherwise, or I choose to say that I'm done, or the man upstairs has other plans. Madam Speaker, along with being the jewel of the Caribbean, we could be the jurisdiction that everybody looks to if we could learn to just simplify and go back to those things that the second elected member said was the formula for his success. Oh, if everyone would just keep it simple. We come from hardworking, God-fearing, brave, honest, Christian, strong, proud, self-providing, practical, and positive people, Madam Speaker. It's in our genes. It's how our ancestors got through some hard days. They endured extreme hardships and poverty. When they left this country, I'm talking about the seamen, to go and forge better existences for the next generation and for their families. They dreamt that their children and grandchildren would have a better life. They valued education without even knowing what education really meant. They warned of the consequences of not being educated. They had high expectations, dreams, and aspirations. Madam Speaker, we are obligated to take those dreams further. We have to find a way. And it doesn't start by us beating up on each other in these hallowed halls. It means all of us shedding egos and pride and sitting at the table and coming up with a plan and carrying out the plan in accordance with a vision for where we want Cayman to be. We have to be strategic in managing this, Madam Speaker. And we have to create that sense of self-identification amongst our people. Allow them to dream, to have aspirations, to give mothers and fathers something to hold on to when they're working multiple jobs, begging for advances to try to get a better life for their kids. And people who come here must be reminded that as they pursue their own ambitions, they must never forget that they are in Cayman and that they have to be ever cognizant of the Caymanians here and not overlook them, especially if they're qualified. And in some instances, take some rough edges and polish them along the way. That is the trade-off for ideal business situations and no corporate and income taxes, Madam Speaker. there has to be an exchange. We should not just build Cayman for inward investment and work permit fees. It has to benefit Caymanians and Cayman. Matthew 7, verses 12, Madam Speaker. The golden rule. Anytime you raise religion or the Bible, these days, you have to be very careful. In everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. Madam Speaker, that's all we're asking. Anyone who comes to these shores, you can come here, you can achieve your ambitions, but not on the heads, backs, and shoulders of those already here. Inequality, Madam Speaker, is a moral issue. And some people might say you can't teach morals, and there's no place for morals in business. I see it as an imperative that we, as the leaders in this country, must have the courage to stand with the poor, to stand with the working class, and when necessary, take on very powerful and wealthy people where we see greed and injustice, because the only thing that can come from that, Madam Speaker, is harm. Madam Speaker, again, I asked this chamber some questions earlier. And it was, what do you want for your children and the next generation? How will you go about achieving this? What is the plan that you have to get there? These, along with a vision, I have to believe, can get us closer than we are. Because if after 50 years, what some people call the economic miracle, we're talking about numbers and advancement, etc., it's time to put a full plan in place with a vision. I don't see that driving out business, Madam Speaker, especially when in other places the bar is set a lot higher. Madam Speaker, this government, like has been said before, is made up with a number of people that have already had full careers in the private sector. So for the first time in our history, we should have that balance that so many people spoke about earlier. We should be able to bring those experiences to the table to help solve this long-standing riddle of how do we get our people in the door, properly trained, promoted to the highest positions in firms, and not just in one sector or two sectors, but anywhere where they're capable of doing so. And Madam Speaker, we don't have that many people to threaten those businesses that are here. In fact, a number of them, if they absorbed every single Caymanian that was college educated, professional in some instances, or highly skilled in trades, etc., in others, we would still have room, Madam Speaker, in a country that imports 22,000 workers. We don't have a job shortage. We have a skills shortage, and we also have sometimes a perception shortage. Madam Speaker, the hour is late. But I do think that today has shown that people feel strongly about this issue on both sides of the coin. So I guess in itself, that is a sort of balance. But let's not seek to recognize and reward those that do the right thing, but not sit and wait and hope that others will automatically step up to emulate and replicate what they're doing. It's time for that dialogue, Madam Speaker, on a national stage. And like I said, it does not have to be beating chests and screams, etc. Because, Madam Speaker, if not now, when? If not us, who? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, be it now therefore resolved that the government considers amendments to business license laws with a view to removing restrictions to employment, training, development, and ownership opportunities for Caymanians, and be it further resolved that the government considers enforcing existing laws, regulations, and policies, and utilizes the Immigration Accreditation Program more fully to hold businesses more accountable, as well as to reward and acknowledge those businesses that hire, train, and promote Caymanians through various levels, including ownership positions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Please, the ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, can we have a division, please?
Certainly, Madam Clerk, please call a division.
afraid to even look at it. How many?
Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Honorable Kurt Tibbet, Honorable Osborne Barton,
Aye.
Honorable Wayne Panton,
Aye.
Honorable Marco Archer, Honorable Tara Rivers,
Aye.
Honorable Anthony Eden,
Aye.
Mr. Winston Connolly,
Aye.
Mr. Roy McTaggart,
Aye.
Mr. Joseph Hugh,
Aye.
Mr. Alva Saku,
Aye.
Honorable McKeever Bush, Mr. Barney Bush,
Aye.
Captain Eugene Ebanks,
Aye.
Mr. Ezra Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Arden McLean,
Aye.
The results of the division are as follows: 12 ayes, 0 noes, and 5 absentees. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honorable Minister responsible for Community Affairs to move the adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the adjournment of this honorable House until 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 25th of November.
The question is that this Honorable House be adjourned until Wednesday, the 25th of November at 10 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned until Wednesday morning at 10 a.m.
10 a.m., not 11. 10, not 11. Lot of people not getting on it tonight.